The watch later. Paradox optimized. The condensation is pooling at the bottom of the plastic bag. It sits heavily on the kitchen counter. You haven't even taken your coat off yet. The fabric feels heavy on your shoulders. Smelling faintly of the subway and the damp evening air outside, you let it drop onto the back of a dining chair, not caring that it slides halfway onto the cold floor. The apartment around you is entirely quiet, save for the low, steady hum of the refrigerator in the corner, and the distant, muffled sound of traffic from the street below. A constant reminder of the city moving around you. You reach into the thin plastic and pull out the styrofoam container, feeling the residual warmth of the food pressing against your palm. It is a small, immediate comfort in a long day. A day composed entirely of hard edges and tight deadlines. You walk over and set it down carefully on the coffee table. You sink deeply into the sofa, finally letting the invisible weight of the afternoon settle into the cushions. You pick up the remote control, or maybe your tablet, and you open the app. The home screen populates instantly with a bright grid of possibilities. There is a 2-hour lecture on the geopolitical consequences of manufacturing. The thumbnail is minimalist, clean, and professional. The title promises a deep, complex understanding of a world that feels chaotic. You do not click on it to watch it right now. Instead, you tap the small icon in the corner of the image. Save to watch later. The little notification pops up at the bottom of the screen, confirming the action before fading away into the dark interface. It joins a massive catalog that stretches down into the hundreds. There is a long essay on the philosophical underpinnings of absurdism. There is a highly technical breakdown of how to season a carbon steel pan. There is an extensive documentary about forgotten architectural movements. You have been carefully building this library for months, maybe even for years. It is a meticulously curated museum of an intellect you fully intend to inhabit. Every time you tap that icon, a tiny, quiet transaction takes place. The simple act of bookmarking the lecture registers like having watched it. It creates a closed circle of satisfaction, a hit of dopamine. You get the momentary satisfaction of being that kind of person. The kind of person who is interested in complex global systems, without having to actually expend the cognitive energy to understand a word. You are claiming the identity, filing it away safely for a tomorrow that always remains just out of reach. A tomorrow where you are perfectly rested and infinitely patient, untouched by the trivial frictions of daily existence. A tomorrow where your attention span is unbroken and welcoming. It feels inherently productive. It feels like you are preparing for a profound personal transformation. But right now, the lid of the styrofoam container is starting to warp, bending slightly from the trapped steam rising inside. You open it. The smell of fried rice and dark soy sauce instantly fills the room. You ordered this because you were simply too tired to chop an onion. You had fresh groceries sitting right in the fridge, a bundle of asparagus, a carton of eggs, a block of tofu. Fresh produce that is slowly softening in the cold darkness of the drawer. Meals you fully planned to cook when you bought them on Sunday. But when 5 o'clock hit today, the entire equation changed. The thought of standing over a cutting board felt like a cliff. The hours between waking up and coming home took everything you had. The endless emails, the forced pleasantries, the constant pressure. Moving through a world shaped entirely by other people's needs. Your reserves were entirely drained before you put the key in the door. So you traded a little bit of money for a little bit of ease. And now, sitting there with a flimsy plastic fork in your hand, you face the heavy catalog once again. The essay on absurdism is waiting patiently in the cloud. The architecture documentary is right there at the top of the list. All of them demand your undivided, absolute attention. All of them ask you to sit up straight, mentally speaking. They require you to hold multiple abstract concepts at the same time, to follow a long narrative thread without losing the plot, to actively care about the outcome of a complex historical argument. To watch the 2-hour lecture right now would be like a marathon. immediately after finishing a long, grueling day entirely on your feet. The contrast between the curator and the viewer is incredibly stark. The curator is ambitious, energetic, and deeply curious about the world. The curator is also entirely hypothetical. The person holding the fork is real, and they are exhausted. The curator believes that time at home is an opportunity for growth. The exhausted self knows that time at home is essentially a triage center, a quiet place to simply recover enough energy to do it again tomorrow. So you scroll right past the heavy things. You scroll past the promises you made to your own intellect earlier. You keep moving your thumb down the glowing screen until you find something that demands absolutely nothing from you. A 15-minute compilation of unknown people restoring rusted tools, a lengthy review of a terrible movie you haven't seen, a chaotic video of a stranger eating brightly colored foreign snacks. You click play. The bright, fast-paced editing washes entirely over the dimly lit room. It is loud enough to fill the silence, but shallow enough to drift away. You take a bite of the hot rice, heavily salted and comforting. You watch the rusty wrench get slowly sanded down to a shine. This is the undeniable comfort of the familiar. The low-stakes entertainment that asks no difficult questions and requires absolutely no complex answers from your tired mind. You're not learning anything about geopolitics tonight. You're not expanding your worldview or challenging your notions. And somewhere underneath the salty taste, there is a shadow, a faint, quiet shadow of disappointment, moving in the dark. It is not acute, it does not ruin the meal, but it is there. A quiet, subtle judgment radiating from that massive, unwatched playlist. You judge yourself for taking the easy road yet again. You wonder why it is so incredibly hard to watch the documentaries. Why the gap between intentions and actions feels like a canyon. But the truth sitting in the room is much quieter than a failure. You are punishing a deeply tired mind for doing nothing but seeking rest, holding your depleted evening self hostage to impossible standards. The standards of your energetic, caffeinated morning self. The act of saving the video was a symbol of who you want to be. The act of watching the rusty wrench is simply basic survival. It is the raw, unpolished reality of moving through a relentless world, leaving very little leftover currency behind for your private hours. You're caught in a silent, internal tug-of-war between the sincere desire for depth and the necessity of relief. You hoard the complex thoughts because you are terrified of losing them, but you choose the easy things because you are already carrying too much, far too much weight to hold anything else right now. You sit there in the flickering artificial light of the apartment, chewing quietly in the warm glow of the screen, hoping that maybe tomorrow you will finally have the strength. The food is mostly gone now, but the screen keeps playing, pulling you further into the quiet, undisturbed current of the night. Subscribe if you want to notice these quiet currents sooner, or subscribe if you'd rather look closer at what's running underneath.